Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of Daybreak on Trust TV. We're live in the Federal Capital Territory. Hope you had a wonderful night. Today on Daybreak, we have so many interesting and enlightening discussions to actually share with you on the show. On Daybreak, talking about Nigerians' aviation crisis. It is at its the crisis is on again, and airline operators have actually threatened to shut down, operations, plus investing in health and future of the nation. The launch of the Lancet Nigerian Commission is what we will be discussing today on Daybreak. But as usual as well, we'll be bringing you reviews from major newspapers from across the country. First of all, the news highlights. Borno State Director of Forestry and Wildlife Ministry of Environment, Peter Ayuba, has confirmed the killing of a lion by hunters in Konduga local government area. Ayuba said the lion might have strayed from Waza Game Reserve in neighboring Cameroon Republic. He told News Agency of Nigeria that a similar incident of elephants from the game reserve entering villages is previously recorded in Kalabalye local government area. Ayuba said there is also an incident of some hyenas killing a man in the bush in Kaga local government area, noting that absence of human activities in some rural communities for several years has transformed many farmlands to thick forests. He explained that the several years of absence of human beings made the animals in reserves to start wandering into the villages. The director explained that the villages hitherto had been without humans until now that people were returning to base with the gradual return of peace. Ayuba urged resettled communities to be careful and vigilant, pointing out that the lion killed on Sunday could have other pride members lurking. Information Officer of Konduga local government area, Ashik Chabol, said the lion chased some irrigation farmers in Malari village who had to invite hunters to engage it. The lion injured 2 hunters before they killed it, and the injured hunters are receiving treatment while the carcass of the lion is taken to the Ministry of Environment. Moving on, National Bureau of Statistics say the Consumer Price Index increased by 15.70% year-on-year in the month of February. The Statistician General of the Federation, Simon Hari, stated this on Tuesday during the monthly press briefing at the Bureau's headquarters in Abuja. The increase is 1.63% lower than 17.33% recorded in the previous month. While on the month-by-month basis, the inflation, he said, also increased by 1.63%, which is 0.16% higher recorded in the month of January. And finally, United Kingdom Embassy of Nigeria has announced the temporary suspension of study, work, and family visa applications. In a statement posted on the official Twitter page of the United Kingdom Embassy in Nigeria on Tuesday, it explained that the reason is because priority has been placed on applications made under the Ukraine Family Scheme, noting that Ukraine Family Scheme is launched in response to the humanitarian crisis arising from the invasion of Ukraine. The statement titled Temporary Suspension of Priority Visas for Students, Work and Family Applications clarified that Nigerians whose passports were ready for collections will be contacted by the Visa Application Center. And with that, we call it wraps on the news highlights. We'll be back after this break.
This is Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian. Nigerian story.
The idea was to give the interim government confidence that there is somebody, a military man, who is well known, who can be accepted.
You alluded to the case of your son, Umar Farouk. Are you in touch with him?
Yes, yes. He phones us 2 times, sometimes 3 times in a month.
As always, when I'm talking about late Abiola, I still thank my God for directing me on things to do when he gave me that leadership of this country.
Many of you honest Fulanis, you allow this man to cast aspersion on you.
You know, Zamfara is the mother of all bandits.
The biggest problem, if you permit me, is the fact that we have not been able to get the totality of our citizenry.
It's very, very difficult to have a fixed mind like that this one you will hand over to this person because you think he will do better.
I don't see myself under no circumstance ever leaving APC for another political party.
Here on the Mambila Plateau. And this is where the hydroelectric power dam is supposed to be constructed.
Most people in Nigeria are ignorant of the fact that employing a child as a maid is in fact against the law.
Access to the textile mill has been very difficult.
I believe, or I think, that if you want to make money, it should be in a place where there are not plenty of people that can do what you do.
From the way things are happening now, I don't think the two parties will make an impact.
I've been talking about the updates concerning the campaign of Nigerian Super Eagles in Abuja.
Bola Tinubu has informed President Muhammadu Buhari of his ambition to contest for the position of president.
To be self-reliant, a blind man defies all odds to become a carpenter in Gombe State.
The country is now experiencing a 4th wave of the COVID-19 pandemic with the emergence of the Omicron variant.
Talks are ongoing between NRC management and the union.
All right, welcome back. In case you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. And, we just had a look at events that happened today in history. And we're moving next to the newspaper review. But before we go ahead and do that, I'm not alone in the studio. You know, I have my co-anchor with me. Good morning, Zainab.
Good morning.
Okay, all right, fantastic. So now moving on, we already have in the studio our guest reviewer, Director of News, Voice of Nigeria, Ben Sheman. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak, sir.
Thank you very much, my pleasure.
All right, with that, we'll start by reeling out headlines from the Daily Trust newspaper. And we have the lead story here on Daily Trust talking about APC crisis. Buni's camp bounces back as activities for convention begin. And we have writers that say party pegs chairmanship form at 20 million naira, secretary 10 million naira. We also have lawyers bicker over representation of court decides suit tomorrow. Confusion over NEC meeting as well. And right below that, we have a pictorial of the National Youth Service Corps members during the passing out parade of the 2022 batch A Stream 1 at Kubwa Orientation Camp in Abuja yesterday. We also have a story on page 10 that says bandits kill DPO, 2 cops, 4 others in Niger. Atiku to Butt, support me to clinch PDP ticket. We also have on fuel scarcity. Fuel scarcity pushes inflation rate to 15.7%. Details of that on page 22. Right below that particular story, we have aviation fuel selling at 670 naira per liter as marketers, operators fail to agree. And airlines insist on price reduction or bailout. Senate begs operators to withdraw shutdown threats. And details of that can be found on page 25. Above, right at the top there, just below the nameplate, we have presidential race. We're not troubled by Oshibaja's ambition, Tinubu's camp says. And we also have blackout worsens as power grid collapses again. Details on page 4.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories on the Punch newspaper this morning. Buni's men tighten hold on APC. Akpanu Doide returns to office. And the riders there say convention remains shaky. Court fails to lift injunction. NEC holds Thursday. You'd also see the story about APC raises cost of chairmanship form to 20 million naira as aspirants snub consensus. And right at the top, talking business, on page 24, Nigeria recorded 1.94 trillion naira foreign trade deficit in 2021, and this is according to a report. On page 22, federal government will tap $2.2 billion Eurobond for fuel subsidy funding, and this is according to the Minister of Finance. Amid fuel crisis, Nigeria's inflation hit 15.70% in February. On page 21, you see the story about Senate proposes airlines bailout. Operators insist on flights suspension. And then there's a pictorial there that shows you members of the National Youth Service Corps during their terminal parade and closing ceremonies of the 2022 Batch A Stream 1 orientation course in Oyo, Gombe, and Abuja. You still find other stories on the Punch, Ogun, Anambra, Kaduna. Others fail to access 33.6 billion naira UBEC fund. You see also the story about police protesters clash as truck crushes Lagos Okada rider and a passenger. And on page 16, Kebbi bandits invade Niger, kill DPO rather, 2 policemen and 4 vigilantes. These are some of the major highlights on the Punch.
All right, we'll move on to the Guardian newspaper, and we have the lead there. Tougher days as energy costs trigger fresh round of inflation. Writers that say headline inflation rose marginally to 15.7% in February. Figures deceptive, politically influenced, or war insists. Experts seek removal of import duties on imported petroleum products, resuscitate moribund refineries to boost availability, FG urged. Last year's trade deficit hits 1.94 trillion naira, 96% higher than that of 2020. And right above that story, you'd find UK suspends visa applications in Nigeria on page 3. Judge threatens to dump Abba-Kyari's rights suit over delayed tactics on page 4. Gunmen kill 4 cops, 7 civilians in Kebbi State. Aviation experts urge federal government to allow local airlines import jet A1 fuel. And right at the footnote there, you have a story that says APC convention, Buni's team returns, takes charge in Abuja, and only 4 doctors available to every 10,000 Nigerians, says federal government. Details of that story on page 4. These are some of the stories on the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories on the Nation newspaper. The Nation is also leading with politics. Confusion in PDP over plots to stop Atiku Saraki Tambuwal. And then you see the riders clash over returnee defectors rocks National Caucus meeting. Ex-VP 2023 poll our last chance. You'd find other stories right at the top. Incessant grid collapse, power outages and businesses. UK suspends student work family visas for Nigerians. And on page 5 and through page 30, gunmen kills 7 policemen, 11 others in Ebonyi, Kebbi, and Niger. UK terminates COVID-19 restrictions from Friday. You'll see other stories. Nigeria fails to meet OPEC's 1.78 million barrel per day quota. And you'd also find stories about Akpanu Doidehe APC convention plans on course. 35 million Nigerians have no access to telecoms, says NCC Chief Nambata. These are some of the major stories on the Nation.
All right, with that, we'll move on to Tribune, Nigerian Tribune. And the lead story talks about PDP may die if it loses 2023 polls Atiku wants. And he says he denied a Tinubu VP slot in ACN. Doc by Sea raises alarm over plot to deny returnee PDP members party tickets. IU PDP governors wade into Obaseki Wike crisis. Details of that story can be found on page 2. At the top there, you'd find a story that says reps probe over $6.479 billion debt owed by oil companies. On Petrol Souvenir, police arrest a rain party organizer. And then blackout as National Grid suffers second system collapse in 2 days. We have more stories that talks about gunmen attack NDLEA office in Ebonyi, kill officer, patient. Kogi government knocks Lukman, ex-PJFDG, over attack on Bello. And then below the pictorial there, you'd find a story that says APC leadership tussle. Niger governor retreats. Akpano Dode resumes as party secretariat. And then we also have to vacate court order. Convention on course, says Kano governor. Chairmanship aspirants to pick nomination form for 20 million naira. And NEC meeting holds tomorrow despite INEC stands, says CECPC. And the pictorial there shows an 18-year-old Nigerian who emerged overall best in 2021 WASC with 8 distinctions. That is a big plus for them. All right, these are some of the stories on the Nigerian Tribune.
Okay, very, very interesting stories. We have with us in the studio the Director News, Voice of Nigeria, Ben Sherman, to talk to us about some of the stories making headways on our dailies this morning. Good morning.
Morning once again.
It's nice to have you here this morning.
Thank you very much. Nice we're alive.
Right. Okay. There's a story about blackout worsens as power grid collapses again. A lot of people have been experiencing, power outages within the city, and it has been an outcry from the public.
Absolutely. Excuse me. In fact, where I live, for 3 days now, we don't have light, not even a blink. And I hope that is not the situation around the Federation. But when you look at it, the GenCos, that's the generating companies, they are not generating as it should be. And when they generate, they said they take loans to ensure they generate. And who are the buyers of this power so generated? You go to transmission. Transmission, they are not buying this light the way it ought to be. And you now go to marketing, where you have these electricity distribution companies. That's where they just feel they should just go, worry consumers. You have to pay this. By law, we have to increase charges. When indeed the GenCos are saying, we generate this electricity, but please come, pay us, so that you evacuate. It's like you take tomatoes from Kano, you are taking it to Lagos via trailers. You have a problem around Okene, you have a problem along the line. These are perishable items. Electricity so generated also perishes, if not used. And funny, I met somebody who is saying that electricity distribution company in Abuja here served them letters. They are doing double charging, double taxation. You bring bills for people who indeed are not using estimated bills. They have prepaid meters. Once there is no light, there is no light, and they buy it, and that is how they consume. But when you now bring a bill again for estimated meter for the same house, for the same person, something is wrong somewhere. And of course, inflation, like we've seen in some of the dailies, is bound to affect the economy. There is no light, there's no fuel. Of course, the boomeranging effect has to be on the economy, has to be on transportation, has to be on government work, has to be on offices, has to be on the formal and informal sectors of the economy. Because without light, you can't do many things. Without petrol or fuel, you can't do many things. So it's a big thing that government has to come in. Look at even aviation, for example. The operators are saying, look, we might be forced to go on strike. Senate is begging them. These people are in business. If they go buy Jet A5 at a very high cost, of course it has to go, it permeates down to the passengers. They have to jack the prices up. So, what does it say? A refinery or two. If I were government, of the 4 refineries, I will ensure that one works effectively, very, very effectively, so that import of these commodities will have to reduce.
Okay, well, are there other options that Nigeria can actually look into besides the national grid? Because, you know, in many countries don't depend on their national grid anymore these days.
Absolutely, we have the solar energy. We can use it. Look at the sun. God has so much given us this sun. We are not using it. What about the wind? I mean, the wind is also available for us to use. But when we begin to say, oh, we have to go the ways of dam, Kainji Dam, Oegbin Dam, I mean, now they're saying the low level of water cannot do some turning of some of this machine. And when there is heavy rain, they say there is too much water again in the dam. What brings this rain? Wind. So why are we not tapping it? Today, see heat in Abuja, northern states of this country. I mean, if you can go to Europe and you still see that they are not relying on this damn thing so much, we, with the sun available, this is where we should, like we said, are there options? Yes, there are. And I foresee that the time will come that the story of telecommunications, those telephones, that somebody once said telephone belongs to the very rich and not the poor. Today the poor are changing lines here and there. I foresee that when there is this great revolution, which must come, you see that people will rely on solar. And of course, that tells you something is in the offing. A situation where you can buy, I mean, a solar pillar, a panel for just 20, 25, 30,000, and it lasts you for a year, 2 years, except for servicing. Then compare that with the bill. You go. I've been to some places in southern Kaduna. I see that at the point they said they were going around Kafanchan area. They said they were going to charge them uniformly. Every house you pay 10,000 naira. I mean, per month. You go to some houses, what they do, you just have some 3 or 4 bulbs, and you want to charge them in a uniform way. You go to some houses, you go to some hotels. How do you charge people in a uniform way? Prepaid meter is better, so that you pay according to your consumption. Pay as you go. If you like, you switch off your light and you go. The light will be waiting for you. You know.
Well, we do hope we'll tap into that.
Yeah.
We have quite interesting stories on our dailies this morning, but there's this one about Vice President Yemi Osinbajo declaring his presidential ambition. A few days ago, we saw how in the news he was planning, or rather he declared his presidential ambition, you know, come 2023. And now the Tinubu camp is saying they are not troubled, you know, by his declaration or his presidential bid to come 2023.
Well, when you say you are not troubled, it's rather the opposite. You are troubled. If you are not troubled, you won't say anything. You will not bother. You will not be bothered at all. At any rate, Osinbajo is qualified. He's mentally sound. He is a sitting vice president. And where you have a joint ticket, the president is going. And if the vice president so feels, and Nigerians are there to put him on a scale Why not? So whoever fears should fear. And if the vice president is still keeping quiet, it is the tactics of the that's the antic, that's the tactic, that's the maneuvering of the politician. He has to gauge the waters, you know, to see what comes out. Now people are saying, come, run. And I could see some photographs where he was in a sports wear. He was trying to wear his jogging shoes. Some people said, run, please run, Osinbajo. And of course, having been under Tinubu for a very long time, of course, some people will be worried and are worried, and rightly too, that why will you want to challenge your boss? But again, supposing some people feel, okay, let's compare. Osinbajo is not, age is not too much on his side. I mean, he's not too much an old man, and he's agile, he can move, he's rugged, in spite of being quiet. Someone said Tinubu has the experience of being an old politician. He can always maneuver his ways all through. But like I said, it now depends on the political parties. First, when it starts with the primaries, will it be direct, indirect, consensus? And of course, Nigerians are waiting. At that level, it's going to be a solely party affair. So whoever the party brings, of course, will now slug it out against other candidates of other political parties. And I can see Atiku saying, look, support me and PDP will win. And he's saying that
PDP will
exactly, and that if PDP does not get it this time around, of course the party is like hitting the very last nail that of the coffin. In other words, PDP will be a story of the past. So these are politicians. Nigerians will decide, but let's see who indeed becomes a candidate. They all are aspirants. They can aspire.
Okay.
They are well-wishers. I wish to. But again, Nigerians, like I said, will put them on the scale. That scale is determined by the law.
Okay, now we're actually seeing, you know, a lot unfolding even as the APC convention, you know, plans are on the way with Buni, you know, Buni and his people, you know, taking over, taking charge. And, you know, the secretary who was rumored to have resigned is actually, you know, back, you know, and everything is on course again.
Absolutely. Without doing a press review. We are doing a press review. If not, I mean, it's like we're doing some shows that people will say, these guys are not serious. But let's do a press review. You see, going by what has happened the last 10 days, Governor of Kaduna State came to say, look, these people have been removed, Boni and his men. At the point, the secretary, former Minister of FCT State, John Apanudon, at the point he said, I've thrown in the towel. I'm no longer the secretary. And today again, we are seeing Buni bounces back and is calm. Again, look at that word, calm, which also follows there are calms.
Right.
Now, yesterday, Abubakar Sani Bello was not cited at the party, secretariat, because Buni is back. So what is happening? Is it that, is it the story of Bob Marley? When the cat is away, the rat will play around. I don't know. Because the way we are going, this is the very jugular vein of Nigeria, party politics. So what happened when President Buhari comes back? Are we going to see a factionalized APC? And if it so happens, people begin to pull out of the party, that is the only chance or situation where the law says, if the party is in crisis, you can look for another place for soft landing. But that has a kind of brought some legal activities into the polity. Like the governor of Governor Omai. Yes. They are now saying, where is your certificate of return? It is given to you through PDP. Now you've crossed over. So which certificate of return are you carrying about? So it also says a lot about cross-carpeting.
Right.
I leave my party, I leave my people, I go to where a friend has invited me. Did you carry the people along? Where is the evidence? And when you cross over, is it that you have to write INEC? What does the law say when INEC hears this kind of information? Do you give a fresh certificate of return? And that's why the issue is with the Supreme Court.
Right.
And of course, that's the ground norm. We expect that when rulings come, it's going to be very, very fundamental when it comes to just abandoning a platform that brought you to power to go to another one where you think you're having it rough. It happened in Cross River State. Ben Nayadi, he left PDP to APC. And of course, it happened in Zamfara. So what will happen?
You know, this issue of cross-carpeting, a lot of people are of the opinion that shouldn't there be some form of jurisdiction as to how politicians, you know, cross-carpet the way they like. There should be some form of restriction of some sort. Is that going to work?
Absolutely. The ruling or the judgment of the Supreme Court that is being awaited, since it is the highest court of the land, once that pronouncement is made, there is now a precedence that you cannot or you can. So Nigerians are waiting. So it is very, very possible. And once that judgment comes, it's going to be landmark judgment, so that people will just know that once you belong to this party, you cannot, except if you resign. Now, if the ruling comes and they says, so, governor, you cannot leave the platform that brought you. So what happens? Is he supposed to return? Is he going to be impeached? Or are they, since there are now very many, and even the lawmakers, a governor will cross over and you just see lawmakers just following, just like that. You know, of course, it shows there is no stability in the system. There's no stable polity. And if we don't get it politically right, our political culture of doing things right, of course you see that many spheres of life will not follow. When we are busy fighting politically, the economy will suffer. We are busy fighting politically, security will not be taken care of. We are busy fighting. You see ASU and the federal government, see them for dragging here and there because politically we've not sat down to get it right, to fix it right. And that's where we are always talking about this African peer review mechanism. If Ghana is getting it right,
how much
you compare Ghana with Nigeria, get their ministries, get their ministers, they sit down. Oh, I can see you are getting it right in these spheres of life. How are we not getting it right here? We can see that South Africa, oh, they are not getting it right in terms of xenophobic affairs, managing foreigners. But in Nigeria, foreigners don't get attacked at all. What is how is it done in Nigeria? So you begin to peer review this kind of a thing. Then you can bring it back home. when some governors are getting it so stable, I keep asking myself, look at Jigawa State. Farmers, herders, you don't see it so pronounced the way it is in Kano, the way it is in Katsina, the way it is in Kebbi, Zamfara, Kaduna State. What is happening in Jigawa that other states are not getting right? So we compare all of those things by way of a peer review mechanism. You know, where are the strengths that these states have? Where are the weaknesses some of these states have? So that you can compare, are there threats that are so obvious and are they tackling them? And that's why Jigawa State, you don't see many of these things, yet you see them in Zamfara State. So the governors, it is time to sit down and peer review yourselves and see what could be done so that Nigeria can have it nice.
Okay.
Really, we need that.
All right. Can you share your thoughts on Nigeria's inflation hitting 15.70% in February? And on Business Day, it's actually one of the big stories, and they said, they put it this way: Nigeria's economy unravels at worst time ahead of elections.
Even Dangote had to warn. Say, look, don't export maize or corn, as some people will call it. Retain what you have at home. He is a businessman. He must have done his analysis, cast his vision. And of course, they say many countries, Ukraine, Russia, they farm these things quite a lot. They export these things quite a lot. Now these countries are at war. So what is happening to them? Now you come to Nigeria. What's our gross domestic product like? Gross, what are we doing? Farming. Look at the farming population in Nigeria. Are they doing it? Yes, there is farming, but do you have post-harvest activities where indeed you have farmers who have farmed? How much was a bag of fertilizer? Very costly. Right now, bag of fertilizer is that high. Now, when you look at our activities in-house, when I say in-house, inside the country, it will say a lot by way of blocking import of food. Meaning that we are producing it. Import substitution. If you say don't bring in rice from China, don't bring in rice from Taiwan and all that stuff, it means we are farming rice to take care of our consuming population at home. If you say don't import fish, it also means we have started producing fish massively. Now, if we are not doing all of this and we are simply importing, there will be no balance of trade. Inflation will be high. And when you even import, how long does it take for you to clear even at the ports? See the queues, time lost, either at the Apapa Key, Tinkan Island, or other ports. You just see that the queues you have over there, the frustration in there, by the time you bring them, now you're having issues of gas, you're having issues of petrol, you're having issues of electricity. You bring all of that sweating, of course you transfer everything to the consumer. Inflation, therefore, will be that high, galloping inflation. Cost of everything will just be very, very high. And of course, prices of things, I mean, the consumer cannot just meet up. And you just find workers, I can't go home. I've managed to come to office. I can't go home. I don't have the money. I've come, I don't have money for lunch, or we need something. It was the last meal we took at home. May we not reach that level. And that's why we're talking of even dry season farming. it has to be taken seriously.
It's really sad, you know, that the issues have come to this, but we do hope that subsequently the issues straighten themselves out. Now we're seeing other stories, like the one on The Guardian that says judge threatens to dump Abba Kyari's rights suit over delay tactics. The other day, we saw his wife, you know, passing out in court, and a lot of people, you know, actually were saying maybe that was one of such tactics to actually delay, you know, his suit.
Well, you see, in Nigeria, when you also have money, you see that some people fall sick easily. Very soon we say, no, my vision is poor, I can't read this, oh, I have diabetes, or I have to have my passport to go for medical test, check-up abroad, and all that stuff. It's always the antics of the rich. Whereas, look at somebody who just took a neighbor's child, driving around on Okada to entertain baby. He was almost lynched. Mm. We've had instances where former Chief Justice of this FCT, Isaac Bello, visiting some courts, visiting some prisons rather, and setting some people free who indeed were caught by Abuja Environmental Sanitation or something, hawking maize, selling namijunguru, and they were charged to court and they couldn't pay fines of 5,000 naira. Some people were awaiting trial for a year or two without case file, and of course they traced them to Suleja, Gwagwalada, and it just some human rights bodies that followed also paid and set them free. You know, why is it that the very poor doesn't get justice?
Really sad.
And during the days of SARS, at the point when the team was to visit some detention facilities, I mean, it was alleged that some of the police SARS officials those days, thank God they've disbanded them. Each time the team was to go there, they just arranged that they were to appear in court. Go carry them in vehicles, so that when the judge will appear and his team, of course they won't find those people there. After visiting, they returned them. Why are we doing all of this? Now, so when it comes to the issue of Abba, one would not be surprised. I said, send him to Guje. No, let's return him in NDLA facility. NDLA facility, of course, you'll be treated as a VIP. But when you go to Kuje, you are most likely going to meet people you have persecuted, prosecuted, and of course they are there in prison. They now say, welcome on board.
It's not going to be funny.
You know, and it's not going to be funny, really. I still remember Senator Nuhu. He used to be DIG from Niger State. When he won election 1999, he went for, when the National Assembly was proclaimed by President Obasanjo, I mean, he just saw some guys, just, oh, how are you? He found it hard, even shaking hands with them. Oh, you came to visit somebody? He said, no, I'm a senator of the Federal Republic. I said, God. He couldn't shake his hand again. After that, he was saying, look, these guys had made sure they were jailed because of criminality. Here we are. They're going to make the laws for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it also tells us that there has to be thorough investigation. Like the banks will say, know your customer. Politically exposed persons, you have to do thorough checks on them. And so justice should have no color. It should be appealing to all, so that you don't have people who can play drama before the judge to deceive the judge. We shouldn't also have senior advocates who are busy talking of technicalities and grammar to dribble the courts.
Right.
And we also pray that judges, when cases are before them, justice should flow like a stream that doesn't have obstacles, so that water will naturally go where it belongs. That is where and how justice is supposed to be.
Okay. All right. Now, can you share your thoughts on the story that only 4 doctors are available to every 10,000 Nigerian, according to the federal government?
Honestly, the way and manner in which many of them are escaping. And of course, when you have...
blame them.
You don't blame them. When you have some willing takers, willing receivers abroad, this coronavirus has done a deadly blow to the medical facilities abroad. So they are busy looking for doctors here and there. Those who are staying, honestly, I still say they are very, very loyal to this country. And when you look at our universities, you see qualified would-be doctors. People are trying to read medicine. And say, oh, we have this quota system. Your area, we cannot give them this medicine. You now give them biology, biochemistry. In the end, they say they are teachers in one day secondary school. When they have just been frustrated. And I was told, we were debating with some people somewhere, said, look, in some other developed countries, when somebody has gone in for medicine, year 1, year 2, year 3, 4th year, you are saying you have to withdraw the person. And you are now giving the person to start reading biology or biochemistry somewhere again. The frustration is too much. At that point, some people said they should be given certificates to practice midwifery, or they should be nurses. And I think it's a very good way out. So when we begin to have one doctor to how many patients? No, it's big aberration, it's a big gap that should be looked at seriously. And thank God, ASU and the federal government are now coming to terms. Let us look at this country with nationalism, with love, so that the last portion of our own national anthem, that prayer is so good for this country. We pray that we look at the country with love. We pray that we should not just say there is quota system. You are from so senatorial zone. We cannot give you medicine. We can only take 3 out of that place. When indeed hospitals are looking for doctors, it shouldn't be. It should not be. It shouldn't be at all. And you go to rural, some villages where you're supposed to have primary health care centers. Some little things you are now moving to specialized areas, federal medical centers or national hospital. I mean, if we get it right, you see that when you post doctors to rural areas, give them incentives, they are going to stay. But when you begin to look at some governors, you pay so much attention to developing big cities at the expense of the rural areas. Of course, you have rural-urban migration, rural-urban drift, and you begin to have the urban slums, because the facilities are in the city, big roads, nice roads, some nice, maybe water is there. At the point, if you can't pay rent, you begin to construct shanties along streams, along gutters, live with the rats, and all sorts of fevers are going in to grab those people. And at the end, hospitals in the cities are overstretched. The rural areas are left just on their own. Right. So the rural communities will have to be made attractive. Make the schools attractive. And that is why, just close to that, when President Buhari is congratulating WAEC, but also calling on them to ensure that they change the curriculum. We believe in this mental, memorizing everything. Nigeria got independence when? October 1, 1960. Excellent. So for me to say that, you mean it's excellent? When indeed we are seeing some local boys who didn't go to school creating what you call some helicopters, use batteries, and they are flying. We can't get these guys. The Minister of Science and Innovation, Obunaya Onu, when he was governor of Abia State, he created what he called a science village. And I kept on asking him, why don't we replicate all of this? Let us create all of that in this place. And at the point, President Buhari set up what they call a committee to ensure that we have Nobel laureates in science and technology. So what is happening? Let us have all of that. When they're doing science and tech innovations and exhibitions in Eagle Square here, you see quite a people who have improved on very many things, be it agriculture, food production, be it in aquatics, fish, and all that stuff. I mean, this is where government should pay attention to, so that this galloping inflation we are seeing, we bring it down, because we are able to create things. When you had the 6-3-3-4 system of government, where you don't have teacher training colleges, scrapped, technical colleges are not coming on board, yet you want to reach the, we are going to continue this dependency thing that we read long ago, dependency, import this, import that. At the point they say we're going to steal technology, at the point we're going to borrow technology. See, they've since gone that far. What are you going to borrow? Sometimes the equipment they've used and abandoned, we go and bring, we say they are latest. It shouldn't be. When you have 6-3-3-4 system, 6 years in primary school, then your junior secondary school is supposed to be technical oriented. Now, you have woodwork, carpentry, welding, building, painting, tiling. You don't have even the teachers to teach all of these things. You just have continuous education. You don't even demote anybody. Hairdressing, all of them, catering, events management. When you teach, it's not everybody who will have a degree. And of course, if we look at that system of education, that policy, I think on paper it is so good, but implementation is a problem.
Well, we do hope
because we are also not getting it right politically. We should be able, how much are we voting for education? How much are we voting for health? If we get all of this right, I'm sure we'll reach somewhere. When Zelani was busy as showing his products in the streets here and there, I mean, it took General Motors to come grab this Nigerian. Today they've brought him back. And he's occupying a very big office. And I think that he's supposed to be in one big workshop wearing some suits, workshop suits with spanners, tools here and there, biros and designing and directing some people here and there on how to design cars, how to design this and that. But you carry him, give him AC and he's wearing suits here and there. I think that...
Really, he's doing great work.
I think, in my own personal opinion, we're utilizing that officer. We should, create one big science village where people with innovative minds, boys and girls. I went to Katsina the other time. I saw ladies designing shoes. Yes. And in terms of fashion, they said, look, I designed this. These are just people who are at a secondary school level. And it was that nice. I don't know whether that's art and craft center. You see them repairing, wristwatches, phones, and that they never manufactured. But they could read all through, and they would know what is wrong with it, and they repair that. You see them doing solar installation. quite a lot of
Very, very,
innovation
very
taking
interesting.
place there. We want state governors to make education so practical. Revisit 6334 system of government, bring back technical education in full, bring back teacher training colleges. You cannot have nice education. I mean, some people who finish secondary school, you recruit them to be teachers. You go to colleges of education, how many do we have? Compared with the population that is ever increasing. We've been here for how many minutes now? Less than an hour. But how many children have been born in Nigeria? So many. So you see that even your budget, by the time you budgeted for this number, by the time you finish the debate on budget, how many children have been born in Nigeria? So quite a lot, and the future is that serious. But you see, we have to use that population positively. Don't just say, oh, my state, we are more in number than you. But what are you using that population for? I still remember in Kaduna State, the days of Ahmed Makarfi when he was governor. When crises were all over the place, what did he do? He just created farms. So look, my youth, form yourselves into groups of 25 groups. They were given land, tractors were deployed, they were engaged in farming. And these groups, you don't select yourselves based on religion. Mix yourselves, go and farm. They became friends. And they could farm, government could buy. And I mean, why don't we imbibe all of that? Dry season has come. People are just there doing nothing. Why don't we imbibe that? Small time, they'll say rain is coming, it's going to be heavy, it's going to sweep so states, going to do. And of course, if we had done dry season farming, those places the rain will come and disturb, we must have harvested. You know, how long does it take to harvest corn? 3 months, 4 months. We harvest before the rain will come. So I think that we should be putting our thinking caps.
Have quite
the
a lot
right
to improve
position.
on.
All right, thank you so much for spending time with us on Newspaper Review on Daybreak today. Director of News, Voice of Nigeria, Ben Sherman. We hope to have you here again next
Thank you very much.
All right, with that, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, it'll be time for our first discussion. Do stay.
Coronavirus disease, COVID-19, is an infectious disease caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus. Most people who fall sick with COVID-19 will experience mild to moderate symptoms and recover without special treatment. However, some will become seriously ill and require medical attention. The virus can spread from an infected person's mouth or nose in small liquid particles when they cough, sneeze, speak, sing, or breathe. These particles range from larger respiratory droplets to smaller aerosols. You can be infected by breathing in the virus if you're near someone who has COVID-19, or by touching a contaminated surface and then touching your eyes, nose, or mouth. The virus spreads more easily indoors and in crowded settings. Maintain a safe distance from others, at least 2 meters, even if they don't appear to be sick. Wear a mask in public, especially indoors or when physical distancing is not possible. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay home if you feel unwell. Get vaccinated. Properly fitted masks can help prevent the spread of the virus from the person wearing the mask to others. Masks alone do not protect against COVID-19 and should be combined with physical distancing and hand hygiene. Protect yourself and others around you by knowing the facts and taking appropriate precautions. Follow advice provided by your local health authority. This message is brought to you by Trust TV.
This is Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Nigerian experts working at institutions in country and around the world have developed recommendations to reposition future policy to achieve universal health coverage and better health for all Nigerians. The initiative, Lancet Nigerian Commission, Investing in Health of a Nation, will be set in motion by Nigeria's Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo. Now, right here in the studio, we have Professor Ibrahim Abubakar, Dean Population Health Sciences, University College London, joining us in the studio as he's also, the Commission's lead. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
It's nice to have you on the program.
So could you talk to us about what the initiative is all about and how do you plan to champion that cause?
Yes. So we, a group of us Nigerians, both within the top universities here in the country and in the diaspora, decided that given the many health challenges facing us, and there is no shortage of health challenges in the country, that we needed the thinking space to come up with new ideas about how we can tackle these challenges. And together we've worked over the last 2 years to come up with a list of major recommendations which we would advocate to policymakers. We, in preparing our recommendations, consulted widely different sectors of the country, the youth. We spoke to individuals who run the health system at independence, all the way to people who are currently running the health system and policymakers, and came up with specific ideas in the different elements of the health system that we believe, if appropriately implemented, will make a huge difference to the health of all Nigerians.
Okay. Now, how will this policy, address healthcare challenges in the country?
Right. So our vision ultimately is that if you go down to the detail of the individual recommendations, we would reach a point where there is healthcare for all. And the way to do that is a multifaceted approach. And we provide the detail in the recommendations, but I'll try to cover a few of them for you. So firstly, we think it is about governance and accountability. There are resources currently being invested in health, but not enough. We think the amounts of resources that go into health need to increase, so the envelope of money available to fund good quality healthcare. We're not talking about large amounts of money. So for example, if you invest an additional 5,000 on top of the current spend, you would be able to, per person, you'd be able to reduce the number of women over the next decade dying by about 160,000. You'd be able to reduce the number of children dying unnecessarily by about 1.5 million. And if you multiply that investment fivefold, you'd be able to reduce about 3.5 million unnecessary child deaths, and you'll be able to reduce about 300,000 women in pregnancy from dying. Now, the way to do that is both increasing the amount of money, but increasing the efficiency with which it is being spent through innovations such as strategic purchasing, through increasing coverage in healthcare and health insurance available. We also think health workforce and health planning is really important. And it's not just simply the amount of salary. Of course, the salary is important, but it's also about career structures for health workers, and not just doctors, but all cadres of health workers, so that they know they have a path to follow to provide healthcare. But in addition, we think they need to have other support in the system so that they have job satisfaction and can see that they're curing people and people are getting better. We think we need better information systems, because with appropriate information, you can challenge providers, you can challenge government, and we think the way to do this is digitization. We've shown with the availability of mobile phones, ordinary Nigerians carry them in their phones, in their pockets all the time. If you use that with healthcare workers, and technology exists and the apps, we can be able to get to a point where we can get the right data about the care provided and the outcomes of that healthcare and go for accountability. Because if the care is not provided, then you can check using this mobile technology to say, why am I not getting the healthcare I deserve? Others are doing so elsewhere in the world. We can do it in Nigeria. One more point. Ultimately, we think we need some level of centralization in terms of the standards and quality systems we use to govern healthcare and the guidelines that our providers need to use, and we need them done properly and once for the whole country. At the same time, we recommend appropriate localization because the different parts of the country differ. So we think there are elements such as healthcare planning, such as making sure that whatever we're providing in our health centers are fit for the norms of each community and the cultures of each community. We need to have those localized to those communities and delivered in a sensitive, culturally appropriate way.
Okay, now you talked about digitization. Now, will this be able to reach those in rural areas?
Absolutely. The penetration of mobile coverage, mobile phone coverage in this country is remarkable. We've made huge progress. It's one of the areas of the economy that people have essentially voted with their pockets, and ordinary people have access to those. Remember, you do not need every single individual to have one. You need access to this technology, say per household, or even sometimes in a single village. And the sort of recommendations about health information system we're talking about, it is about having it in the health center. So what we are recommending is that healthcare workers in the primary care center use mobile technologies to collect data about health so that they can also be held to account, but also so they can use the information to deliver better quality of care.
Really very interesting. Another issue, you know, I noticed over time is the nonchalant attitudes of health workers in some of these, you know, healthcare institutions. Do you have a provision to, you know, challenge that, to take care of that?
So health workforce planning is an important element of our recommendation. I have no doubt that our colleagues are working in really difficult circumstances and that they are doing extraordinary feats in remote parts of Nigeria, in places with challenges around security, and providing superb and excellent care. When people are working in very challenging circumstances, it's not unusual for them to then have attitudes and behaviors to cope with the situation they find themselves in. Our report and our recommendations are that the way to go around that is to improve the working conditions of those healthcare workers. And as I alluded to earlier, it's not just simply about salary and pay. It's about the overall working conditions, the career structures that they follow, the incentives that they have to be able to do their jobs, and the opportunities they can see to progress in that career. It's not what you get today. It's ultimately where the potential you can see of where your career can end up. If we fix that, and if we increase the number of healthcare workers so that they are not overworked, then ultimately there's a path. Other countries have done it. Good examples in Ethiopia. Even Ghana is doing better than us. You go to Rwanda, you'd see that with about the same amount of resource, and in some cases less, they're achieving better outcomes. We can do the same.
Okay, now, will taking care of these health workers reduce brain drain in Nigeria?
Yes. So brain drain is not a challenge unique to Nigeria. Brain drain is a global universal problem. And ultimately, the way to address brain drain is workforce planning. You need to think through what exactly do you need at the different tiers of your health system, in primary care, in secondary care, and you need to plan ahead to train sufficient numbers. Some countries choose to train in excess of what they need, but we need to train enough, and we are not getting there yet. We then need to make sure that when we train people, we provide them with career structures and progression that allows them to feel comfortable, happy that they are going to have the skills to make a difference. And then, of course, we need to think carefully about our reward structures and to see if we are compensating people for the level of skills they have, not just doctors, but all healthcare workers and associated professions.
Okay, now how can you actually ensure that everyone obtains the health services they need without, you know, it being a burden on them financially?
So this is an area that we cover in a great deal of detail in our report. And our view is that you need a hybrid of a system. We need to have, for the 83 million poorest Nigerians, those that are least wealthy and least able to afford, the government, through taxation and through innovative financing, for example, the fuel subsidy that currently exists, which largely the elite benefit from, could be redirected to providing the resources needed to pay insurance premiums for that 83 million. We've calculated using detailed models that that would amount to about 1.2 trillion naira to provide that cover. And then certainly nearly half of Nigeria would have insurance coverage. But it's not enough to just put in money. You need to convert that money into good quality care. Because if you do so, those with then money in their pockets, not the 83 million, will buy the same insurance. And then the excess you generate from that, you can use it to cover everybody. So ultimately, you could end up with universal health coverage because you've utilized that tax source revenue combined with insurance for those that can afford to pay to cover everybody.
Okay, now in your report, you actually talked, a great deal about, health, being of economic benefit to a country. When the people are healthy, the country enjoys and, it prospers. Can you shed more light on that?
Right. So the old adage, which I'm sure we all hear from primary school, that health is wealth, is very true. Unfortunately, health is only wealth if you invest in it and you make the difference. And the data are there. We've used Nigeria-specific data collected from our health centers to show that little amounts of money of the order of 400 naira invested in things like nutrition for kids could return a value about 45-fold. And we think that there are huge opportunities to make those investments in the wider determinants of health, such as nutrition, clean water, sanitation, and indeed our healthcare. And if we do that and we do that right, then health can indeed become wealth, because those individuals would grow, be healthier, be productive, and be able to contribute to the economy in ways that they cannot do currently, because loads of people are dying from virtually preventable conditions, diarrheal disease in children, women giving birth and dying from maternal causes, and all those things are preventable with really small sums of money. So we need to get our political leaders, those responsible at state level, at local level, and nationally, to recognize the opportunity that health is in fact wealth, seize that and make a difference. In fact, the seminal thing we do in our report is think through, there's something many countries have which Nigeria lacks, possibly at the moment, but possibly ever, which is a sense of, why should I believe in the country? Why should I believe in Nigeria? And for many countries, what you do is the country offers you something in return. So we believe that health provides an opportunity to create a new social contract between the citizens and the leaders, so that Nigerians can see that they are getting something in return from Nigeria. And that social contract we describe as one nation, one health, with universal health coverage. And if we do that right, then I believe Nigerians can buy into the Nigerian idea and be patriotic.
Okay. Now, would you say the COVID-19 pandemic has in any way, helped Nigeria carve a better path to improving its healthcare system?
So, COVID-19 has devastated many, many countries. We're lucky in Nigeria, partly because of our young population, partly because Nigeria acted early to prepare for it. But nevertheless, lots of people have lost their lives from these devastating conditions. Nigeria's response, compared to many across the continent and globally, I would describe as has been good.
Interesting.
So we have an opportunity to build on that. And there are specific examples of initiatives within the COVID-19 response, which we cite in the report. For example, the private sector in particular, and the COVID effort, and the way they helped government to stock and supply vaccines and similar interventions has contributed to healthcare in substantial ways. I think what we need to do is to identify those good elements and build on them. There are obviously multiple challenges as well, which we should learn from and make sure that with the next epidemic or pandemic, we don't repeat those mistakes.
Okay, now we're actually aware that many of these particular programs rely on cheapest possible drugs, thereby risking problems of toxicity, adherence, and lots more. What makes this different?
What makes this initiative different? So I alluded to the fact that we gave ourselves a 2-year period. We brought experts from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, from Ibadan, from Kano, Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, as well as the very best brains internationally, from Harvard, from the UK, Australia. We came together in a room. We sat down and critically thought through. We looked at our history. We looked at all the previous reports. We collected new data from multiple hospitals around the country and clinics and health centers. We analyzed those. We looked at case studies, examples in some states where things are working, and internationally in places like Ghana and across the world. And we summarized those in those reports with specific ideas about implementation and about the things that we failed to do before. And we feel that we presented a compelling case of the sort of things you need to do that build on current knowledge and build on Nigeria's experience, and that should advance us to do better than we've done before. We do need, however, better accountability and better governance. So ideas are only good if they're implemented. And we're clear that that's what needs to happen.
Implementation is very important, and it seems to be an issue, you know, in Nigeria with everyone, you know, lots of good ideas, but implementation, you know, is actually an issue. Okay.
Well, you know, I was keen to actually ask, from what you've just said, it seems like funding is not the problem. It's the implementation of the policy that's the problem. Is that it?
So it's a little bit of both. We need better funding because per capita, our spend, it's near the top of the West African average, but well below the African average, our healthcare spend. Therefore, there is room to spend a bit more to provide healthcare, especially if it's targeted at the poorest Nigerians. But we need to spend the resources we've got better. So if you compare us, and we did a detailed accompanying paper where we compared Nigeria with other West African countries in terms of health spend and outcomes. And it's very clear that for the same amount of money, our neighbors are getting better outcomes than us. We need more efficiency. And we've described ways we can achieve that using initiatives such as what we call strategic purchasing, where you pool your monies together and you can negotiate better with the people that you're buying from, and therefore get more for your money. We obviously need to block what Nigerians call leakages in the system and ensure that the resources that are invested in health actually reach the people that they're intended to reach. And there are ways that others have done that to make sure that using accountability systems, using the publication of information, ensuring that the appropriate legislation is designed in such a way that the opportunity to extract out of state-owned revenue is minimized. And those can be done in Nigeria.
Okay, now what changes will be required if the benefits of this initiative, you know, are not delivered? You know, and also just talk about the risks that might be likely involved and how you intend to mitigate those risks.
So our report is purposely actually optimistic because there is a danger that with all of the challenges that the country is facing, if we take the view that things are all doom and gloom, then that's the only path you'd go. The only way you get to a good place is to understand that it is possible to do so. So we take an optimistic view, but we also call it an optimistic, pragmatic view. So pragmatism relates to all the challenges I described. Our system is not perfect, so we combine optimism with pragmatism. Having said that, if we don't get this right, if our population continues to grow at the rate it is growing, if our healthcare deteriorates below the level it is at, then the consequences are catastrophic. Our failure to invest in health is actually being felt right now. The large numbers of deaths that I told you in kids under 5. Nigeria, sadly, boasts of having the largest number of children under the age of 5 dying unnecessarily anywhere in the world, no exception. Nigeria, sadly, has statistics such as our maternal mortality ratio, where the only countries that are worse than us are Chad, Sierra Leone, and South Sudan. And if you think about the wealth in this country, we can't avoid that. We have the brains, we have the resources, and we have the energy and innovation to do the opposite of that.
Okay, now just before we go, can you actually share your thoughts on a particular report that says that, you know, there's inflation right now, you know, 15% and Nigerians are actually turning to herbal medicine, you know, because they can't afford, you know, orthodox medicine. So just share your thoughts on that.
So clearly, you articulated that people are doing that because of poverty. And that is why our recommendation that the 83 million poorest Nigerians ought to have their insurance provided through taxation. Innovation, we say things like, just put 1 kobo on every minute of a mobile phone conversation and direct that directly to paying for healthcare for these poorest Nigerians, so that we avoid a situation where people are taking substances that could damage their liver. We think that it is possible to do that, and that through innovative financing and efficient spending, you could get to the point where people don't go to alternative medicine providers. There are instances where alternative medicine is of value, and complementary medicine can help people psychologically to be satisfied with their lives, etc. But there are many, many diseases that can really only be cured with evidence-based modern medicine, which we should provide to all Nigerians.
Okay. Before we quickly wrap up, I would like to ask, this initiative, for how long is the outlook like? How many years is it going to
So
be
our
for?
time frame is a 10-year horizon, and all of our modeling and all our estimates and planning has a 10-year time frame. So ultimately, what we recommend are things that you can implement immediately, but things that you continue to do for the next decade to make things better and better, with the hope that in a decade there will be healthcare for all Nigerians.
We're looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so that was Professor Ibrahim Abubakar, Dean, Population Health Sciences, University College London. Thank you so much once again. All right, we'll take a quick breather, and when we come back, it'll be time for the next discussion. Do stay.
Coronavirus disease, COVID-19, is an infectious disease caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus. Most people who fall sick with COVID-19 will experience mild to moderate symptoms and recover without special treatment. However, some will become seriously ill and require medical attention. The virus can spread from an infected person's mouth or nose in small liquid particles when they cough, sneeze, speak, sing, or breathe. These particles range from larger respiratory droplets to smaller aerosols. You can be infected by breathing in the virus if you're near someone who has COVID-19, or by touching a contaminated surface and then touching your eyes, nose, or mouth. The virus spreads more easily indoors and in crowded settings. Maintain a safe distance from others, at least 2 meters, even if they don't appear to be sick. Wear a mask in public, especially indoors or when physical distancing is not possible. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay home if you feel unwell. Get vaccinated. Properly fitted masks can help prevent the spread of the virus from the person wearing the mask to others. Masks alone do not protect against COVID-19 and should be combined with physical distancing and hand hygiene. Protect yourself and others around you by knowing the facts and taking appropriate precautions. Follow advice provided by your local health authority. This message is brought to you by Trust TV.
The idea was to give the interim government confidence that there is somebody, a military man, who is well known, who can be accepted.
You alluded to the case of your son, Umar Farouk.
Are you in touch with him?
Yes, yes. He phones us 2 times, sometimes 3 times in a month.
As always, when I'm talking about late Abiola, I still thank my God for directing me on things to do when he gave me that leadership of this country.
Many of you honest Fulanis, you allow this man to cast aspersion on you.
You know, Zamfara is the mother of all bandits.
The biggest problem, if you permit me, is the fact that we have not been able to get the totality of our citizenry.
It's very, very difficult to have a fixed mind like that this one you will hand over to this person because you think you will do better.
I don't see myself under no circumstance ever leaving APC for another political party.
Here on the Mambila Plateau. And this is where the hydroelectric power dam is supposed to be constructed.
Most people in Nigeria are ignorant of the fact that employing a child as a maid is in fact against the law.
Access to the textile mill has been very difficult.
I believe, or I think that if you want to make money, it should be in a place where there are not plenty of people that can do what you do.
From the way things are happening now, I don't think the two parties will make an impact.
I've been talking about the updates concerning the campaign of Nigerian Super Eagles in Abuja.
Bola Tinubu has informed President Muhammadu Buhari of his ambition to contest for the position of president.
To be self-reliant, a blind man defies all odds to become a carpenter in Gombe State.
The country is now experiencing a 4th wave of the COVID-19 pandemic with the emergence of the Omicron variant.
Talks are ongoing between NRC management and the union.
All right, welcome back. Yes, it's still Daybreak on Trust TV. Now, local airlines in Nigeria have said they have less than 3 days to shut down operations over lack of aviation fuel. At the moment, the airlines are buying the fuel at 670 naira from normal price of 190 naira recently. Now, speaking before the Special House Committee investigating the unavailability of the product with the aim of preferring solutions, the airlines represented by the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, Air Peace, Mr. Allen Onyema, said that they cannot afford the fuel anymore. Now, take a listen. All right, to give us perspective on this, we have aviation researcher and publisher Godi Ike in the studio with us today. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Hi.
All right, now I remember the last time you were here to talk about the hike in airfare. Yes, you're here to talk about that. And right now we're seeing a lot of issues, springing up in the aviation sector. Are we likely to see a collapse in the aviation sector?
I would say God forbid it, because it's not our desire. If it happens, excuse me, it will ground the economy of the nation. It will appear that a whole lot of people do not appreciate the contribution of aviation to the economy of any nation in the world, not just Nigeria. And so I would say God forbid that it doesn't happen, but it would seem that our activities are heading that direction. So somebody needs to do a 180 degrees and turn it around so that we will face a better direction. That seems to be what's going on, because it's totally unacceptable that we'll be talking about 600 and above per liter of aviation fuel. Even at 500, it still doesn't make sense, because it will throw the cost of operation overboard. And of course, the airliners, in order to survive, we pass on that cost to passengers in terms of, hike in air ticket. As a matter of fact, I flew to Lagos in company of my wife just a few days ago, precisely on Friday, and came back on Sunday. For two of us, that flight cost us, just the flight alone, 200,000 naira. There are not many families in Nigeria today that can afford to spend that kind of money just to do a trip for 2 days, in Lagos and back. It's just totally unacceptable. We can't go on this way.
We're also seeing that amid, the whole, fuel staggering amount, Nigeria's inflation hit 15.70% in February. That's alarming, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. The reason it's going on is we've actually, as a nation, been conducting ourselves very irresponsibly. There's no nation where leaders fold their arms and watch the economy of the nation, sliding all the way and trying to hit the rocks, and everybody's relaxed and behaving as if nothing serious is going on. But in the actual sense, something really very serious is going on. My biggest worry is that those that are hit hardest along, along the line would one day stop every one of us from having a normal life. And if you know what I mean, when those who cannot go from one point to the other locally to look for their the daily livelihood are unable to do that, and are unable to pay for one meal a day, you know what follows? Chaos. And that's not what we pray for, and that's not what we need. So those that are making all the decisions that are, dealing with issues like this should really sit up and be serious and see the danger ahead of us as a people and as a nation. And may God forbid it, we don't ever get there. Yeah.
God forbid. All right, now, airline operators have actually demanded that they should be given license to import aviation fuel, saying that if they're not given that license, and they continue operations, that Nigerians will end up spending like 120,000 naira just to get to their destination. Now, will giving them a license make any difference to it?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. It does make sense. First of all, again, let me get you to understand that aviation fuel is so important in the business of aviation. It actually constitutes 40% of the cost of operation of any flight from one point to the other. All the things you put in, the cost of the crew that will be flying the airplane, the cost of these landing costs and the rest of them, insurance, everything put together, aviation fuel takes whopping 40%, out of the 100. And so you see that it's huge. It's quite huge. And so if it continues to rise the way it's been going, then you expect that the cost of operation of flights from one point to the other will become outrageous. And of course, for the airline to survive, to break even before looking for some profit, they will have to get it at an acceptable cost. Yes, it makes sense to issue licenses, not just even to airline operators. No, any businessman in Nigeria that has the money to do that kind of business should be licensed. And then what government can do is set up a body that will control what's being brought in. A serious-minded body headed by a serious-minded individual who will ensure that everything that finds its way into this country is thoroughly inspected, tested, and seen to be the quality that is acceptable. Because it's good enough to have a whole lot of these things coming in order to keep the price down. But at the same time, again, safety is extremely important, because if you run the jet engine with some adulterated fuel, what you find is you get up in the air and then the engines begin to shut down. Yes, and if you lose your engine power when you're already airborne, you are doomed. Yes, you're doomed, because that plane will get off the sky, and the rest is history that nobody wants to experience. And so there is actually no sense in what we are doing currently. Limiting the importation to NNPC and perhaps one or two favored individuals. It should be opened up. And then have a very serious-minded controlling body ensuring that every drop that gets into this country is of the right quality. We can't be behaving as if we're all a bunch of unserious people or a bunch of people without knowledge. No, we've got a lot of very knowledgeable people in this country. A whole lot of us are knowledgeable. And so, and a whole lot of us are serious-minded. And so, we should be able to begin to operate like serious-minded people. Open it up. Get people who can afford to do the business. Even banks, if they're interested in sponsoring those kind of the transactions, and they have people they can trust, let them have their licenses, get these things in, and of course, definitely prices will come down. The reason this is going on is that some individuals are enjoying monopoly, and so they are playing around. Otherwise, tell me how I had in the news last night that during the meeting with the members of House, some individual from NNPC announced that they had brought it by just decree, by just a word of mouth. Oh, okay, now we bring it down from 600 and something to 500. What does that tell you?
They agreed on a benchmark.
Yeah, but what does that? Yeah, what does that tell you? If somebody can wake up overnight and say, okay, we're not doing 600 anymore, and let's do 500, it shows you that the figure was manipulated in the first place. So you can manipulate it upwards
Yes,
and then
but
manipulate it
I was
downwards.
actually going to ask, you
Yes.
know, if, you know, there's some kind of politics involved, because while most of these airlines were saying that they only had, you know, only fuel for 3 days stock, you know, you have Obugo Ukoha, that's the executive director of Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, saying that there's enough aviation fuel to last the country for 34 days.
One way or the other, whoever makes a claim must prove it. That would be my answer to that. But I must tell you, while I was, or we were, because I mean, I was in company of my wife, while we were at the airport, at the departure lounge, GAT, that is the General Aviation Terminal in Lagos, we noticed that the whole place was filled with passengers that had been there waiting since 8 a.m. We got there by about 11:30 because we had a 2 o'clock, you know, flight, and we couldn't even find somewhere to sit down, and everybody was just. And then when I asked questions, you know, about what was going on there, and some individuals said to me that their flights were for the previous day. Yes,
Wow.
and then they were asked to come in early this morning, and they were there from 8 o'clock, and then the airline continued to announce that they couldn't fly because they didn't have aviation fuel. Some announced that they couldn't fly because the weather was inclement and all those kind of a thing. And I hate to hear stories like this, because they tell it to the people who do not understand what is or what should be. I have it on record that Lagos happens to be one of the lucky airports that's got the Category 3 instrument landing system. Now, it's an awesome instrument landing system that enables compliant airplanes to land totally blind. So the fact that you have hazy weather, you have Harmattan haze, and you're not able to sight the wrong way, is absolutely unnecessary with Category 3 instrument landing system, because all the pilot needs to do is to keep an eye on his glide slope and follow the glide. Even if he shuts his eyes, you know, if and he's hooked it on auto, for instance, that plane will get there nicely and touch down on the threshold of the runway. That is the awesomeness of Category 3 instrument landing system. Our Honorable Minister Hadi Sirika has made it severally known that we've got that successfully installed in Lagos, we've got that successfully installed in Port Harcourt, and I think another place you will have it is supposedly Kanu. And then when people begin to tell me that flights were cancelled because the weather was hazy, yes, the ignorant ones who do not understand these things about aviation would accept those kind of stories. But you're going to be able to tell me that story, except you're telling me that that category of instrument landing system is not existing there, that we were lied to. So that's what you journalists will have to look out for. Quote me that we were told that we have Category 3 instrument landing system there in Lagos. And if it was true that it was there, mind my language, because how they are sounded now is showing to me that it's not there. But if it was there, there's no way excuse will be made over hazy weather. Planes can land with the right, one excuse that can be made anyway is if they say that the planes that the airliners are flying in Nigeria are not compliant with Category 3 instrument landing system, then I raise my hand and say, okay, I give up. Because it's not just only about installing the instrument. The planes that will fly them must be compliant. Otherwise, you can't fly the Category 3. So you journalists find out what's going on, because I hate to hear all this kind of cock and bull stories, about these things. Yeah.
Quickly before we wrap up the
Yes.
other segment, before this whole fuel crisis came up, we were hearing about Nigeria Air, to come up in April. There are preparations to do that. But it seems this whole fuel crisis has put a sort of distraction to the preparations towards the Nigeria Air fly. Are you skeptical about Nigeria Air?
How am I going to answer this question right now? We've come a whole long way in this issue of establishment of Nigeria Air. You hear one thing today, the next day you hear another, and the next you hear yet another. Personally, what I have been doing since the last time I heard the Honorable Minister Hadi Sirika announce when the rollout would be is keeping my fingers crossed. And that's all. That date will come. May God keep us all alive. We'll see whether it will happen or not. And then after that, we can talk.
Okay, now just before we go, there are reports that the aviation sector is yet to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Could this be part of it?
I do not think the COVID pandemic is affecting the local flights. Where we have challenges is, and we are still having them because we chose to do what we are doing, is the international flight. Well, when major nations that were hardest hit by COVID-19 have stopped this issue of, PCR or whatever they call it, tests. And they've suspended all those for as long as you can show that you have been vaccinated, you are good to go. And we're still busy here extorting money from, because that's what it is. You pay before you leave the nation. You arrive Nigeria, you pay yet again. And a few individuals are smiling home to their banks with billions and billions of naira that I doubt if government is seeing any of those monies, and nobody's asking questions. The message here is, if the international part of the aviation sector is still having challenges, it's our fault. Other serious-minded nations have suspended those bottlenecks. They've suspended them all. And so why are we still not streamlining things to say, hey, everybody go get vaccinated. If you must travel, you must be proven to have taken your vaccine, and then show evidence of it. And yes, some claim that a few people are also getting fake, vaccination cards. You see, I don't like us making excuses that make us look unserious and sometimes irresponsible. When people engage in playing such dirty games, it's up to government to set up an underground investigative body to check out who's doing what, find the culprits, rein them in. By the time you have jailed some high-profile individuals for doing things like that, everybody will sit up and everybody will begin to do what's right. The reason we're misbehaving in this country is that we're not enforcing our laws. We're not showing that our laws do exist. We're not showing that they have teeth, that they can bite, that they are willing to bite, and will bite when they catch you doing the wrong thing. Yeah.
All right. I think with that, we have to wrap up our discussion here. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Yeah, so that was aviation researcher and publisher Godi Ike, sharing his perspective on happenings in the aviation sector in Nigeria. All right, with that, we've come to the end of Daybreak. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman.
And I'm Zainab Bala. See you tomorrow.